Okay, well, welcome back everyone as we start the second portion of this week's assignments. This will be the side elevation, the east elevation of the building. And so as we start, it's probably wise to just do a brief review. Our elevation was easy to start with because basically we had a section profile, and that section profile accelerated the process of creating the boundaries or the profile of the building rather quickly. And so that was a great assistance to us as we started that portion of the work. Now, this elevation, we don't have that same direct traceable reference as we had before. So, but the information is still there. It just means we have to work with it a little bit differently. So as we look at the elevation here, what we have is all the features with the exception of the solarium, and we talked about that in the last session, that you can complete those pretty readily. By the way, the little posts that are provided here, again, those aren't necessarily the solution. This is just a reference. And so the drawing that I've got here is acceptable for what it is right now. And so as a result, we'll come back to this and review it a bit later. And what I wanted to do is identify that with our new drawing, we're going to have a change in our plan orientation. So beforehand, we were working with the elevation along this side, which is the north elevation, and now we're moving to the east elevation along here. So we've had to rotate the plan in a counterclockwise position 90 degrees. So we've squared it up and taped it down so we can start that process here. Now, this, as we saw in the last exercise, will give us all the information we need along this side. And since these two portions of the building come outside, we're going to see them in profile. So those are going to be a little bit different as well. The information that we've generated here will still be valid and available. So we're going to come back to that in just a minute. But as we get ready to do our drawings, we want to have this information available because it is an important reference. And as we do so, I'm going to go ahead and tape down our drawing in a way that we can then just trace or utilize the information that we had previously. So I'm going to go ahead and get this taped down and do the same thing on this side. Let's square it up. Make sure that we're good and square across there. We look pretty darn close. Good. All right, so go ahead and get these two pieces. All right, now as we start this drawing, what we want to do is follow the same pattern as we did last time, and that is let's find a building profile. Based on the building profile, then we can build what's on the interior portion of the diagram, and that gives us all the information we'll really need for the drawing. So to do this, we know that the width of the primary structure, the main bulk of the object, is from outside to outside lines. So we're just going to draw two vertical lines that will get us in that arrangement or in that orientation correctly. So I just drew two vertical lines. I didn't measure them yet. We'll come back to that in just a bit. Now, one of the things we want to do is we've got the left side and the right side. Let's go ahead and plant this onto a baseline or a ground line, and that'll give us enough information that we ought to be able to go from there. So I'm just going to shoot a horizontal line, and let's just do it right here. I don't know how it's going to work out, but we're going to say that's our ground line. Now, if you remember, our goal was to that our ground line was just that distance between the finished floor and the base of the drawing or the ground. So now we know that that's 3 feet up from the previous drawing. We're going to go back and bring the line up from there. So as I do that, I just drew this up 3 feet, double checking again to make sure we're 3 feet. Oops, checking again. Yes, 3 feet. Okay, so that's our finished floor. So from our finished floor, we have a couple ways we can measure or identify the top portion. Now remember, our observation is that we've taken this element of the facade, which we worked on in the last assignment, and we're turning it this way now and seeing it in side view. So this height right here will be the same height as this height. So using the previous drawing, we can either measure from here to the finished floor. I'd use the finished floor as probably a safer point. You could measure from the ground line, but you're starting to get outside the boundaries a little bit. I'd keep it inside and use the finished floor as much as possible. But having said that, you can slide this drawing underneath and just mark that point. As long as you're aligned on your finished floor and your baseline should be the same. The difficulty is this sheet's a little large and it's a little cumbersome, so I'm not going to do that. I'm actually just going to measure it to scale, and it should be okay. So now I'm going to measure from the finished floor line, remember? So I'm looking at it, and it looks to me real close to like 24 foot 3 inches. That's my dimension. You need to check yours and make sure you're consistent. Don't use mine. If it's off by 6 inches or 8 inches or something, use yours. It's important that your drawings all be consistent with each other, especially later down the road. All right, so we said it was 24.3, and I'm going to go back now and measure up 24.3 from this finished floor line right here. So 24 is there, and 3 inches. Right there, and just doing a light line. Okay, so we've got the ground line, we've got the finished floor line, we've got the ridge line, we've got the boundary lines. Now we can complete the basic form that is necessary, and then we'll add the other pieces on in just a bit. So as I do this, I want you to keep in mind that all we're really trying to do is make sure that we're staying inside a framework that's easy to work with on the plan. So now, put the ridge line in. I'm not going to blast the finished floor line on. I just don't think that's necessary. I'm going to get myself anchored to the ground. Okay, so there's my basic form. So as I continue on, there's a couple other things I can take off here as a measurement. Let's do some simple stuff. We have the finished floor. We can measure from the finished floor the height of that porch, the height of the top of the eaves here. These are major pieces that we'll need later. We can find the I'll say angle break or the change in angle on the solarium. We can find where the height of the fireplace is. We can do all sorts of stuff from here. So let's make it a little bit easy. Let's go ahead and just get some of these big blocks squared away. So let's work with the heights. Off finished floor. Keep them off finished floor for right now. Okay, so we found the peak of the ridge. We're just going to find the eave height now. So from the finished floor, I've got it marked right here on the plan. It looks like it's 12 foot 6 inches. That's what I got. So that's what I'm going to measure. So I'm going to come up 12 foot 6 inches right there. I'm going to shoot a line across. That's the top of the eave. How tall is the eave? It looks like it's 8 inches. So come back down here, 8 inches. And I'm going to shoot another line across. Okay, so far we've drawn the baseline, the finished floor line, the ridge line, and our edges are good because we lined those up with the plan. I've just measured the top of the eave here, and then I came down 8 inches and got the bottom of the eave right there. So to make that, those lines are already on the plan. So that was pretty straightforward. So again, I got the baseline, finished floor line, peak, top of eave, and bottom of eave. So that's where we're at so far. Now, that basic piece is good. I'm gonna just go back to my previous pattern that I used in the previous set of videos by using the floor plan now to mark in my floor plan or my window placements as necessary. Now there's only one window right here and the solarium here. So let's just start with the window and then we'll go to the solarium real quick. Okay, so we know that the window is here. We're going to mark the edge just like we did before. We're going to mark it lined up with the finished floor. We're going to shoot a line up. How high do we go? Well, we're going to go up the same height as we went last time, which was listed here. That said that we are going up the height of 6'8". All window door head height 6'8". And that's what we did in this plan. Okay, so I'm going to measure up 6'8". Mark it, draw a horizontal line, and we're going to be done with the head height on that. What is the sill height? From the previous, we found it was 3 feet from the finished floor. Again, 3 feet from the finished floor. There we go. Right there, mark it, and there it is. So I can erase those bottom guidelines, and that's the basic box right there for the window. That's right there. Now let's do the solarium. So let's start with the idea that it's always good to start with the boundaries of everything. We did it with the building. We're going to do it with the solarium as well. Now in the previous one, we were able to simply trace it. Now we're going to have to think about this and maybe take some dimensions off here. It may require that we go back and even take some dimensions off here. It just depends on where you're at and what's the easiest thing for you. All right, but let's start with where it is left and right. So we know that we have, thinking about the outside, we can't see inside, so we can only work with the outside. It's an exterior elevation. So I'm just going to mark it, do the same thing on the other side. Now, we know by looking at the plan here that it tucks up rather nicely underneath the eave there. So that's going to be our top line. So we're going to extend it up. We're going to stop just short of the underside of the eave. Okay. Now, how far down does it go? Well, from the section we took, it looks like, as I'm measuring here, 18 inches. So from the finished floor line, that's from here, the finished floor line, down to the bottom of the structure that is cantilevered away from the building, it is 18 inches down. So we go 18 inches, and we mark it, and we come down to here, draw our line. Now, I'm going to go ahead and draw this in just a little bolder here, so you can see it a little better. Okay, that's the box. That's the box right there. So if we simply follow some of the guidelines that were in our section, maybe that's because I didn't draw them on my elevation here. We're going to just kind of come back to this. We see the features are, we've already got this piece. We already have the piece where it comes up underneath the eave. Our next measurement is the height of the angle change. Then after that, we have the height of the band. Then we have the height of the sill or the seat, and we've already done the bottom in here. So let's get those horizontals in, because then we can go back to the plan and put in our verticals, and everything will start to pattern out well. All right, so I'll just go ahead and do a quick measurement off the finished floor. What is, let's see, oh, there it is. Okay, so I have a remnant right here of that height, and it looks like it's just almost exactly 10 feet But if I was to drift it out a little bit, I'd say 10 foot 2, 10 foot 3. So from the finished floor, 10 foot, 2 inches. Okay. So then double check that one more time. Finished floor. Okay, good. All right. So mark that. And we bring it out. Just bring it horizontal. Clean up some of our additional lines here. Measure it. Again, measure yours. Don't use my dimensions because it's important that your work be, it'll make your drawing more consistent if you just take it off your work and not mine. Okay, so we've got that. The band, I think, was at 8. The bottom of the band was 6 foot 8. Let me double check. Solarium, it says, okay, the lower head is 12 high and it is at 6'8". So we go 12 high and that's where it goes. So there's our band. There's our angle break. Here's the head at where it meets the eave, and here's the bottom. And we want to go, if I'm not mistaken, let's see, double check myself here. Yes. Okay. So we want to be 16 up from there. Okay. So that's our seat height. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to, I've got my heights in. I took them off the plan. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put divisions in off the plan. So just like before, we see an edge here. We see an edge here. We see a next edge, 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 and so on. So I can just shoot those lines vertically up all the way through. I'm doing them lightly to start because I'm going to have to do a little erasing later, and I want to make sure that I don't end up with some pretty heavily ghosted graphite lines. So almost done. I'll put the last one in. There we go. So there's the grid. Doesn't make a lot of sense right now because I haven't completed it. I'll probably complete it during the break, but I wanted you to see what we were trying to get accomplished with these two features. So as we do this, I'm going to go ahead and spruce these up a bit, and when I come back, we will be able to then take a look at how to do the porch elements, and maybe even a discussion about interior or exterior finish materials and textures for the object or the structure that we're working on. So we'll see you in just a few minutes as we continue on with this second part of this week's assignments. We'll see you in just a few minutes. Thanks and so long.